Hello, and thank you for joining us for this informational webinar. We're going to begin soon, but we're going to wait for a few more folks to Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this informational webinar about your upcoming tour, Italy and Greece. I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about this incredible itinerary. My name is Nilsson. I work for Go Ahead Tours. I'm a member of our community and engagement team. I'm based out of the Boston area. And as I said, I'm very excited to be your host for this webinar today. I'm also really excited to introduce you to one of our tour directors in Italy. Linda, can I ask you to introduce yourself to our travelers today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nilsson. It's a real pleasure to be with you. My name is Linda, and as Nilsson said, I'm Italian, although my true passion is for Italy and Greece in combination. And I've been with the EF Go Ahead for a very long time, and I hope to be for a very long time to come.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Linda. I'm really excited to talk about this itinerary and to introduce our travelers to some of the things that they might get to experience on tour. So with that, let's talk about our agenda for today's meeting. To begin today's meeting, I am going to be talking to you about some information related to COVID-19. I'm going to be talking to you about our Safe Traveler Agreement. We'll also take a minute to talk about entry requirements, so what's required of you to go on tour and where to find that information as you get closer to your trip. We'll also talk about safety on tour as well as exit requirements, or what will be required of you in order to fly home. From there, we're going to transition and begin talking about some fun stuff. I'm going to ask Linda to give us an overview of the itinerary itself. And once we've done that, we're also going to give you some other helpful tips to help you prepare for your trip. We'll talk about things like weather, packing, money, and more. And then to close out our presentation, we will have a question and answer period. So for those of you at home, I want to let you know that we have invited all the folks scheduled to travel on this itinerary in June, July, and August to be at this webinar. And while we cannot see or hear you at home, we do want to hear from you and we welcome your questions. So if you do have questions for us, you can submit them using the Q&A function in the toolbar in Zoom. I have colleagues that are going to be monitoring that inbox, but Linda and I will also try to take some of your questions during the presentation and, of course, during the Q&A period at the end. So with that, I do want to talk to you about our Safe Traveler Agreement. The Safe Traveler Agreement is a document that we have created that outlines our approach to travel at this time. And it lets you know what we expect from you as a Go Ahead traveler and also what you can expect from us and the other people in your group. The Safe Traveler Agreement is on our website, and it will be posted in your online account 45 days prior to your departure. And we ask that you do read through the agreement and then sign off on that before you travel with us. So with that, I do want to talk to you about some things that you will need to have on tour, and then we're also going to talk to you about entry requirements and where to find them. So the first thing that you're going to need to attend your tour is a passport. So that shouldn't be a surprise, but if you haven't traveled in a while, you do want to double check and make sure of two things. One, you want to make sure that your passport is valid for at least 6 months beyond your scheduled return date, and you want to make sure you have space in your passport for stamps. So double check, make sure that your passport is valid and will be valid for 6 months beyond your scheduled return date. Now, Go Ahead Tours is asking of our travelers that they be fully vaccinated before traveling with us internationally, and we ask that travelers have a negative COVID-19 test before joining our groups. As far as what Go Ahead is asking in relation to COVID-19 tests, we ask that you have either a PCR or an antigen test. Either one of those is fine. And if you're having that test done by a third-party provider, so for example, if you're getting a test done at a pharmacy, we ask that you do that within 72 hours of the departure of your first flight. So if you're getting your test done by a third-party provider, please do that within 72 hours of the departure of your first flight. Our guidelines also allow for home testing for additional flexibility. And if you do decide to do a home test, we ask that you do that kind of test within 24 hours of your departure. And we ask that you take a photo of that result to bring with you to tour. So those are a few things that Go Ahead is asking of our travelers. But what I think is also really important is to talk to you about what is going to be asked of you by the governments of Italy and Greece, and how to find that information. I think it's very important to mention that, we're talking today and it is April 13th. And the folks that are in this meeting are scheduled to travel in June, July, and August. So it is very possible that these regulations may be different by the time that you travel. So let's talk about how to find your entry requirements. We have provided two different ways that you can find this information. One of them is using the Go Ahead Tours app, and the other one is by using your online account on the Go Ahead Tours website. So let's talk first about the app, and then we'll talk about the website, and I'm actually going to take you there to see what these regulations are as of today. But first, let's talk about how to find this information in the Go Ahead Tours app. If you don't have the app already, you really should download it. It's a really great tool and will help you have a great tour. But when you open the Go Ahead Tours app, on the bottom of the screen, there's a toolbar. And one of the options there is marked Tours. And so you'll click on the Tours option, and then it will bring up a list of the tours that you are scheduled on in the future. So you would select Italy and Greece, and then you would see a screen similar to what you see on the screen marked number 2. And this is a scrolling menu. So you'll just scroll down that menu until you find the option that's marked Getting Ready. So the Getting Ready tab in the Go Ahead Tours app is where you're going to find the most important information for you as you prepare for your tour. So you'll find information in there about packing, about weather, all the rest. But most importantly, for our purposes right now, at the top of the Getting Ready page, there is a link that's going to be above everything else that will prompt you to click on it to find your entry requirements. And then it will list what is expected of you in both of the countries on your tour, as well as to return home. So again, if you're using the Go Ahead Tours app, click on Tours and then scroll down to Getting Ready. The Getting Ready tab is where you want to go in the Go Ahead Tours app. So with that, I also want to show you what this looks like on our website. As I said, you can get to this page on our website by using the by going through your online account. You can also go there by going to the website and searching in the search bar up here for travel requirements or entry requirements. So here we are, we're on the Go Ahead website together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this looks like if we type in Italy and Greece. All right, great. So as we get to this page, I do want to bring your attention to the top section here where you see tour participation requirements. So this section is referencing what Go Ahead is asking of our travelers. And the Safe Traveler Agreement that I referenced before can be found right here. So you can click on this and then you can read the full text of the Safe Traveler Agreement. A few highlights from the Safe Traveler Agreement. We do ask that our travelers be vaccinated. We do ask that travelers have a negative COVID-19 test before joining our groups. And we do ask that travelers wear masks in certain locations. So with that, I want to bring you down the page. And what we can see here is this page will list out the requirements when you're traveling from the United States to Italy, and then from Italy to Greece, and then Greece to the United States. If you're joining us and you're a Canadian traveler, if you're on the Canadian version of the website, this will automatically switch to be for Canada. So you can get that information there as well. So let's talk briefly about some of the entry requirements in Italy and Greece as of today. So I do want to be very clear, this is as of today, and these regulations may change by the time that you travel, but I do think it's important to talk about what we're looking at if you were to travel today. So let's look first at proof of vaccination to enter Italy. So if you're able to meet the vaccine requirements to enter Italy, you do not have to show a negative test result. So let's talk about what the requirements are to enter Italy by only showing your vaccination certificate. So, and your passport, of course. So fully vaccinated travelers must have proof of having received the full course of vaccination, approved by European Medicines Agency, a minimum of 14 days before travel. So you need to have it at least 2 weeks before you travel, and a maximum of 270 days before traveling to Italy. So if you've received your initial vaccine series, so just the initial 2 shots or 1 shot of Johnson & Johnson, that would be valid for 9 months. But if it's been longer than that since you've had those shots, you would need to have a booster shot to be considered fully vaccinated and to enter the country by just showing your passport and your vaccine card. So the good news is that if you have received a booster shot, there's no validity on a booster shot. If you've received a booster shot at any time, you are in the clear, you're good to go. So the only time that this time frame would matter, this 9-month time frame, is if you have only received your initial vaccine series. If you have received your booster shot at any time, you are all set to enter Italy. So one thing that I do think is very important to mention here is if we scroll down, we can see this. Stricter rules around proof of vaccination may apply to the country's health pass. Be sure to read all regulations for a full understanding of vaccination requirements for travel to Italy. So if you have only received your primary vaccine series, again, that would need to be within 9 months of your arrival to Italy, but there are stricter requirements for the health pass. So this is what you would need to enter restaurants, to go to museums or the Vatican. And so in that case, your initial vaccine series would have had to have been in the previous 6 months. But again, if you have received your booster shot at any time, you are in the clear. You are considered fully vaccinated, and you're as vaccinated as you can be under these regulations. So if you've received your booster shot at any time, you are good to go. So, but again, I do want to just touch on this. For vaccinated travelers with a 3rd dose or travelers with the enhanced green pass, that has no expiry date. So if you have your booster dose, there's no expiration on the booster dose. And so this is, we also get questions about, how do I get a green pass? How do I get a green pass? The good news is you just need to bring your original vaccine certificate with you. You don't need to apply for your own, for any kind of other form. Bring your vaccine certificate with you and your identification. Now, one other thing I think is important to mention here is that current regulations also require you to fill out a passenger locator form before you arrive in Italy. They ask you to fill this out online, but the great news is that by using the Go Ahead website or the Go Ahead app, you can just come into this page and you can be linked to that form right here. So complete online, that will link you directly to that form. So please do that a few days before you depart. You don't want to be doing that when you're at the airport. Give yourself a day or two before you depart to do that. One other thing I think is important to mention when talking about Italy is masks. So there are certain locations in which KN95 or FFP2 masks will be expected. So you should plan to bring KN95 or FFP2 masks. They're essentially equivalent with you on tour. So I would plan to bring KN95 masks with me on this trip. All right, so, one last thing I do want to mention is that these pages that we have, they pull in all of the information that could be necessary for your travel to Italy. But the good news is for these forms here, for Puglia and for Sicily, you're not going to either of those places, so you don't have to worry about those forms. Now let's take a moment to talk about Greece. We have a very similar situation here. There isn't a form that you have to fill out to enter Greece, but again, the proof of vaccination to enter the country, if you've only received your primary vaccine series, it has to be within 9 months of that to enter the country. But again, if you've had your booster dose at any time, there's no expiration on that, and so you're good to go to enter the country. Again, another similar situation, the health pass for the country to go to restaurants, to enter museums, most of the kind of things that you're going to want to do on your tour, you do need to be able to show your proof of vaccination. And for that, you either need to have had your booster dose at any time or have received your initial vaccine series within the previous 7 months. So one thing that I think is a high level takeaway from this is that your tour will be much easier, much more enjoyable if you do have the booster dose, and frankly, if you don't, I think that your tour could be impacted in a negative way by not having that. So masks are also mandatory in indoor public spaces in Greece as well. So again, please do bring your KN95 masks with you to tour. Now, one thing that I also do want to mention is that as of right now, for our American travelers, before you fly home, you are going to have a negative COVID-19 test. We're going to be helping you to arrange that, and I'm going to talk to you about some details about that in just a moment, but I do want to make sure that I let you know about that. One question we get very frequently is if people can bring home tests or self-tests from home. And so I do want to just mention that this section here, travelers may use self-testing, but it must include a telehealth service and provide real-time supervision remotely through audio and video. So if you want to use a home test, that is an option that's available, but you do have to set it up as part of a telemedicine visit. But the good news is Go Ahead's going to be setting up an opportunity for you to test, so you don't have to set that up yourself. All right, so we've just talked a lot about entry requirements. I do want to transition here and begin talking a little bit more about the on-tour experience and what you can expect there. So I'm going to take us back to our slideshow, and we will talk about that a little bit. So one thing that I think is important to mention when we talk about the on-tour experience, and I think this is important no matter when you're traveling, is the importance of flexibility. So when you're on tour with us, if we do have to make adjustments, please know that we, first of all, have some experience doing this, and we will be doing whatever we can to give you the best experience possible. So we thank you in advance for your flexibility, and please know that we'll be doing our best to give you a wonderful tour. Now, let's talk a little bit about testing on tour and proof of vaccination. So as regulations are today, my expectation is that for our American travelers, you would have to test twice on this tour. You would have to test once before you depart because Go Ahead is asking that of you, and you would have to test once in order to fly home. For our Canadian travelers, if you don't have layovers in any countries that do require testing, my expectation is you'd have to test before you arrive to tour, and then it would not be necessary to fly home unless, of course, you do have a layover where that would be required. As it is right now, you don't have to do a test flying between Italy and Greece, but if something were to change, if testing were to become necessary during the tour, we would be there to handle the logistics of making sure that's available to you. Proof of vaccination is very important for this tour. So as I said before, if you meet the vaccination requirements of Italy and Greece, you can enter both countries without a test result. So that's really helpful. But more importantly, or while equally as important, is that both of these countries currently have requirements for public activities. So to go out to eat at a restaurant, to go to a museum, and these kind of activities, you do need to either have a booster shot that you received at any time, so there's no expiration on that booster shot, or have received your initial vaccine series within the previous few months. I would say 6 months because Italy, it's within 6 months. So when you are on tour with us, you may have questions about what local regulations are. The good news is that you will have a tour director who's there with you, especially with questions around masking and when that may be expected of you. They'll be able to help you navigate that. Also, we have been working with our partners to have enhanced cleaning protocols throughout your tour. So I do hope you see some of that, places like hotel lobbies and other common areas. You should see some of that during the course of your tour. Now, I do want to talk to you about some support that you have when you're traveling with Go Ahead. And one of those things is the on-tour support team. These folks are folks from our North American offices that they have a phone number that you can call 24 hours a day. So the most common reason that people call them is because of flight delays. And if you do have a flight delay, please do let us know. We want to make sure your arrival to tour is as smooth as possible. So if you need anything, we are there, we are available. I would also say that one of the best things about traveling with Go Ahead is your expert tour director. They're with you throughout the tour, and for all questions, great and small, you can bring them to them and they will be there to support you. So even if you feel silly about the question, I can almost guarantee they've heard it before, and they want to make sure that you have the best experience you can during this trip of yours. So please don't be shy. Let them know if there's anything that you need or if you have any questions, and they're there to support you. So I do want to answer one question that we receive very frequently during these webinars and by email, and that is, what happens if I am required to quarantine on tour? And this is a good question. This is part of travel in the new normals. We have to make plans around this. So I want to give you some reassurance that if you're traveling with Go Ahead and you are required to quarantine on tour, we will be there for you. We will arrange and pay for your hotel and your meals. We'll provide translation services for you. If necessary, we'll communicate with local authorities and medical professionals on your behalf. And if you've purchased your flight package with Go Ahead, we will arrange to get you home on a new flight itinerary once you're able to leave quarantine at no additional expense to you. So I hope that that you don't have to use any of these policies, but I want you to know that we'll be there for you. And I hope that gives you some peace of mind as you're getting ready to travel. So I do want to take a moment here to talk about testing to return home. I mentioned this briefly when we were on the Go Ahead website talking about getting back to the US. So as it stands now, current US regulations require our travelers to take a negative COVID-19 test the day before they depart. So what we have been doing is we've been helping our travelers to arrange these tests. What we try to do whenever possible is to bring someone to your hotel to have this test done. In Greece, my expectation is that the price that you will be asked to pay for this test will be approximately 25 to 30 euros. So that is my expectation as far as the price that you'll be asked to pay for those tests. And so that is something that you should budget for now. And I also want to answer one question that we get very frequently is, can I use a home test for my return flight? So one thing that I would say here is that it is possible. It can be done, but it has to be done under certain conditions. So as I mentioned before, if you do plan to use a home test for your return flight, it has to be taken as part of a telemedicine visit so that the person observing you can then provide you with the proper documentation of your test results in order to fly home. Now, again, we can make this a little bit easier for you. We're going to be arranging testing for the group the day before you depart. And so if you wish, you can just take advantage of that opportunity. And again, I expect the price for that test will be around 25 to 30 euros per person. All right, so let's take a look. I want to see if we have any questions that I can answer here. Let me just read this quickly and then I'll see what we have. All right, so this traveler is asking if they may have different requirements if they're coming from another country. I would say that if you have a connection through a third country, I would always recommend checking with your airline to see if there are any other requirements, because that can alter things. So if you are connecting through another country, I would say double check with your airline to see if you have any additional entry requirements that you may need. All right, and so with that, I do want to transition and begin talking about the itinerary itself. Linda, I'm so glad to have you here to help us out with this today. I love this itinerary, and there's so much to talk about here. Let's jump right in. Can I ask you to start beginning with the arrival day?
Absolutely. And Nilsson, we share the same idea. This itinerary is just fantastic. It's the Mediterranean at its best, honestly. So when you arrive, you'll be landing in the airport of Naples, and from there you'll be transferred directly to the coastal town of Sorrento. And basically what you should expect on the way is views like this, because in reality there is only one way to access Sorrento. It's a kind of a narrow road, but it's very, very scenic. So if you don't fall asleep right away on the bus, I assure you that you're going to enjoy one of the most beautiful views. And once you arrive in Sorrento, you will be checking into your hotel and taking the rest of the day to relax before you meet your fellow travelers for a welcome dinner. But before that, you have a welcome meeting so that many questions can be answered, and you can definitely get an overview of everything that is ahead in the days to come. So very quickly, we move on to the first proper tour day, which will be the next day on the peninsula of Sorrento. And this day will take you to the nearby island of Capri. You say Capri, I say Capri. And the island of Capri is one marvelous place to visit. It is really just off the tip of Sorrento, so the boat ride is not very long. And once you arrive there, you have another boat ride, but this point is a very scenic one. It is a mini cruise to see all the grottos and the caves by the coastline. The coastline of Capri is one of the most beautiful things to discover, full of treasures. If you're lucky, you can even see coral on the rocks. shops. And then you're going to ride the funicular, the cable car that takes you to the famous Piazzetta. You will stroll around the village of Capri. You can visit you will visit the Augustus Gardens. Let's put it this way: plants, scents, people, beautiful shops. It is an incredible experience. At the time you will have to ride your boat back to Sorrento, you will leave Capri full of wonderful memories. But there is still something to do tonight. Tonight you have the opportunity to enrich your experience by participating to an optional tour that we call Rustic Italy. Although here I have to say something, it's not simply rustic, it's divine. It is a wonderful location. Now, consider this: you'll be accustomed to seeing the beauty of Sorrento, but what you don't expect is remote locations of the peninsula where really it seems like you can touch the sky with your fingertips and you can see the sparkles of the water. And we get there at sunset. So how more perfect than this could it be? And then you discover this farm, which is actually an excellent restaurant, very well reputed, where they produce everything themselves. You will be introduced to winemaking. You will be introduced to the concept of locally sourced while you sit in a very beautiful ambiance and the conversations, the people, and also people watching, because it's full of locals there, because the locals realize that that is one of the best places to go on the peninsula of Sorrento. So this is an experience not to be missed. If you don't know how to spend your evening, spend it with us, because I promise you it's going to be well worth it. And then the next day, we're going to move on with the tour. So before going to Rome, we cannot simply do a transfer to Rome. We're going to stop in the beautiful ancient city of Pompeii. Pompeii, that during the pandemic has come to the forefront of every newspapers. It made the news so many times. There's so many discoveries in Pompeii during the pandemic. It seems like they were waiting for a moment with no crowds to unveil everything that there was still to unveil. So you will walk the ancient streets. You will actually learn how the ancient Romans lived in this wonderful place at the foot of Mount Vesuvius. And since we are lucky and blessed, the Mount Vesuvius won't be dangerous that day, I promise you. It hasn't been for a very long time. And after visiting Pompeii and spending some time getting a little bit of refreshment and lunch, you will continue on to the city of Rome, where you will actually check in into your hotel. The next day is what I call Eternity in a Day. Eternity in a Day is an excursion that will show you, will unveil the best of the Roman Empire. Now, when you consider the ancient world, it is quite incredible to be in Rome and realize that all these things have been around for 2,000 years. But what is more incredible is that all these things are still built into our lifestyle nowadays. So you will actually enjoy all of this with an expert local guide. And it is a half-day excursion, so you will have some time on your own before making a decision for the evening. And the evening can be really fun if you join our cooking class and dinner. Now, I know when you are on holiday, why would I want to go to cook if I'm on holiday? Because it's not about cooking. It's about being entertained by a chef, listening to stories of homemade food and childhood and the way we actually live in Italy, our culture, because our cuisine is our culture. You'll be making pasta. In some cases, you'll be messing up with pasta, but at the end, there will be the promise of a delicious dinner waiting for you. And the evening is really very nice and enjoyable. And once you leave the place, you'll say, okay, that was really not about hard work. It was more about fun. The next day, instead, during this itinerary, you have the opportunity to book another optional excursion, which is the Vatican. The Vatican is one of those iconic sites in Rome. So if you have already been, you probably will want to opt for a free day. But if you haven't been, or if you feel like you haven't seen it all, and believe me, that is possible. It is possible for me. and I go there very often, please join our tour so that we can unveil the highlights of the Vatican museums, St. Peter's Square, and St. Peter's Basilica. Here is a glance, just a little view of St. Peter's Basilica. We were talking before with Nilsen. It's impossible to capture how majestic this place is in one picture. It's absolutely impossible. I mean, you'll enter there and it's like you're surrounded by this incredible size of a church, but then it's everything sparkles in colors and incredible marbles, and the architecture is just mind-blowing. So the Vatican is always a good idea. I know we say that about Paris, but I do transfer that to the Vatican. Believe me, it really is. And then we're continuing on with the next day on tour. We are going to transfer to Athens. We do so by flying to Greece. And once you land in Athens, you will take a transfer to the city of Nafplio. Nafplio is a brilliant place. It is a very picturesque location, and it is the first capital of Greece when it became a free country. It's very Venetian in style, with a little bit of Moorish architecture here and there. The mountain is dominated by an incredible fortress. If you're really adventurous, you can even decide to hike the many steps of that fortress, or just enjoy the relaxation of your hotel. This is your very first moment you step foot into Greece, but it will be the next day that you're going to start diving into the ancient culture of this country by visiting two very famous places, ancient Epidaurus and Mycenae. Here on the picture, you see the great theater of Epidaurus. This place is fabulous. I mean, it's still, after so many years, I still cannot believe that these people, since so many years ago, so many centuries ago, they carved every single step from the hill, and they realized that the most incredible acoustics. The theater is still in use these days. They have one of the most beautiful summer festivals at this theater. And after that, to the very ancient prehistoric site of Mycenae, to discover how we all started, how we all got started, to discover everything that there is to know about our ancient ancestors, and also to dig a little bit into the legend of Helen of Troy and discover a little more about mythology, which is not a fairy tale. It is a mix of truth and human character. So we all discover something more about ourselves when we hear about all those myths and all the legends of the ancient world. The next day, we move on. We leave Nafplio behind and we go to Athens, and we start in the best possible way. The sightseeing tour of Athens. We climb on the top of the Acropolis to see the gem of all gems, the Parthenon. I know it is the ruins of the Parthenon, but believe me, when you are up there, it doesn't feel like simply like a rock. It feels like you are at the very center of the world. You're actually dominating the world from above. The city of Athens will be at your feet. You will hear incredible stories of things that have influenced our lifestyle up to this day. And then moving on, you can enjoy a relaxing free day in Athens, or still enjoy some free time in Athens, a good half a day, but spend the other half of the day joining an excursion to Cape Sunio. Cape Sunio is the southeasternmost point of Europe. It's coming to the end of this continent, where there is this temple dedicated to Poseidon that dominates the Aegean Sea. And it gives you a sense of immensity to be up there. You will discover how Lord Byron fell in love with this place. You will discover the incredible mythology behind the name of the Aegean Sea and of God Poseidon. And then you will return to Athens. Now, the promise is that on the way to Cape Sunio and on the way back from Athens, you will see incredibly scenery all throughout. And at this point, the vacation is complete for some of you. Some of you will actually be ending their vacation in Greece and fly home. And some others instead will probably opt for our Santorini extension. And if you do so, then there are still some few days of incredible discoveries ahead of you. Here she is, Santorini, one of the most beautiful islands. This is the town of Ia. It is written O-I-A, it is pronounced Ia. It is on the top of the island. For those of you who have seen movies like, for example, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, I know that that is very popular amongst teenagers, but the pictures have been online for forever. Well, those narrow streets, those colored houses, the Greek flag here and there, the cafes that have seating to enjoy the sunset are just there, and an amazing thing to experience. But there is also a lot more to experience on the island of Santorini. You will definitely enjoy a guided tour. Santorini is not simply a beautiful island. It's one of the most ancient archaeological sites in the world. In fact, you'll be visiting the ruins of an ancient civilization, and you will also be introduced to the lifestyle on the island. We always think of these places for going there on holiday. We never think that people actually live there. And how do they live? What do they do during their downtime? What is the winter like in Santorini? All the secrets you will be discovering during your guided tour. And then later that day, you can enjoy an incredible adventure, the Caldera Cruise and dinner. The Caldera Cruise and dinner is, how can I put it? It's like the movie Mamma Mia in a nutshell. You will do all of that. So you will be cruising, you'll be jumping in the water if you want, you'll be eating delicious food, you'll be hanging out with old and new friends because you'll have your fellow travelers and other people that you meet on the catamaran. It's going to be a lifetime experience, believe me. Even those who think, but really, do I want to get on a boat? Maybe I want to go shopping. Well, once they hear the stories of those who have been on the boat, they go like, can we organize it a second time? Because it is really worth the choice, believe me. And then let's move on to another free day. So as you can see, we'll leave you plenty of time to discover Santorini, hiking, walking, or taking public transportation, going down to the beach if you want. And then we offer another optional opportunity, which is the Greek wine tasting and lunch. This is our wine tasting location. So imagine this, you are in front of the vineyards. Now you would say, Linda, are you crazy? I don't see vineyards there. You don't see them because the vineyards in Santorini are down on the ground, braided in baskets, because the island is very windy and also very hot, and the grapes need to be protected, but they get the salt of the water of the sea, and that salt translates into an amazing, unique flavor that really pairs beautifully with the food that is served. Let's put it this way, a wine tasting at Santorini is a must-do. Absolutely. And then after all these beautiful experiences, you'll fly back to Athens for one last dinner on your own. At this point, you have made great friends, so you'll probably hang out for dinner with your tour director and your fellow travelers. And then the next day, you depart home.
Oh, Linda, I love this itinerary. There's so much here. I mean, especially just with the two headlining cities, you know, Rome and Athens, what wonderful experiences people can have, and so many different ways to customize your experience too.
Yeah.
Linda, I did want to take a moment here to see if we have any questions that I can help answer before we move on to our helpful tips. So let's see what we have. So, I do see one question here that I can help answer. And actually, these two are fairly, they're sort of similar questions. So the first question, this one's from Wendy, and she asks, can we pay for our COVID testing before going home with a credit card? So Yesterday, I did one of these webinars with one of our tour directors in Greece, and he said that yes, credit cards and cash are fine. He said that that it can make things a little bit faster if you pay with cash, so you might consider doing that. But yeah, so credit cards are typically an option to pay for the tests to go home. So this traveler, this one's from Gregory. Gregory says that they don't want to travel with a lot of money, and so they're wondering if they have to pay for the test in cash. Credit card is an option that will be available. And then also was mentioning tipping money for tour directors and local guides, and asking about carrying that much money. And so what I would say is my recommendation is generally to take money out of ATMs. So that way you can have access to cash, but you don't have to carry it with you throughout the tour. So I'll talk more about that in a moment. We are going to have a section dedicated entirely to money and some recommendations that we have there. One question that came in here: how many masks should we bring? So my recommendation is to probably to bring a number of them, but I would say as you're packing them, make sure that you bring at least a few of them that are KN95 or FFP2 masks. So I would say make sure you have a handful of those with you for the tour. All right. So with that, I do want to move into some other helpful tips that we have for you as you prepare for the tour. So the first thing I want to talk about is the arrival day and how to meet the group once you arrive. So some good news for you is if you've purchased your flight package with Go Ahead and you're arriving on the standard arrival day for the tour, we already have plans to meet you at the airport. If you are arriving on that day and you've purchased your own flights, we can also talk to you about arranging transfers for you as well. But we do need to know when you're going to arrive and talk to you about pricing. So please do give us a call if you've purchased your own flights for the standard arrival day, and we can talk to you about setting up transfers for you. One question we do get occasionally is if folks are arriving into the country a few days early, if we could help them with transfers. And unfortunately, we only arrange transfers on the standard arrival day. But I do want to talk to you about what the process is going to look like if you're one of the travelers that does have that transfer scheduled with us or has purchased their flights with us and has that transfer included. So what you can expect is, first of all, after you land, well, first of all, welcome to Italy. You've made it. Your tour is beginning now. But when you leave your plane, what you're going to do is go through the customs process. You're going to be showing your proof of vaccination. You're going to be showing your passport. And then from there, you're going to go to the baggage claim area to collect your luggage. Now, one thing that is very important to mention is that we cannot meet you in the baggage claim area. That is an area that is restricted. So in order to meet our representative, once you've collected your bag, you do need to proceed from there into the public arrivals area. So once you have entered the public arrivals area, you will have a Go Ahead representative who will be there waiting for you. They will be holding a green Go Ahead sign that will look something like this. And so when you should look for a sign about this size, green, and so they will be holding a sign that looks like that. Now, one thing that I would say is if you don't see someone immediately, please be patient. It's not unlikely that our representative may have to go to another area of the airport to meet another traveler. And so it's possible that the moment that you walk out there, you may not see them immediately. So please do be patient and wait for a little bit, stay put there and give them a chance to come find you. Another thing that you can do to make this process easier is we're going to be sending you luggage tags in the mail, and you can put these luggage tags on your bag, and we'll be looking for green anywhere in that arrivals hall. So if you have this on your bag, this will be helpful for us. We're also going to be sending you a name tag that you can wear around your neck. So if you can wear this and have that luggage tag on your bag, that'll be very helpful. Again, we'll be looking for green anywhere. Another thing I would say is these are going to come in handy because there are going to be locations on the tour where you will have to wear a mask. And so it's very helpful for our tour directors to be able to know you by name, even if your face is covered. So please do wear your lanyards and have the luggage tags on your bag when you arrive. So once we've collected folks that have arrived at the airport, usually we try to group together people that have arrived within about an hour of each other. We then have a transfer from there to the hotel. Now, one thing I think is important to mention here is that the ride can vary between 1 to 1.5 hours from the airport to your hotel. So that's just something that you should be prepared for. It is a very scenic drive. It's a nice drive, but that is something that you should be prepared for. Now, one question that sometimes we get is if people are arriving early and are doing this trip on their own, what's the best way for them to accomplish this? I was chatting with Linda about this, and she was saying that probably the best way is to look for private transfer companies that do this specific ride. Linda, is that what you recommend?
Yeah, I did recommend that because if you arrive in the city of Naples and you intend to go to Sorrento, it is true there is a local train, although, and unfortunately, I have to say it's not the most reliable. So at this point, I think it's much better with luggage and everything to book a private transfer. There are many transfer companies out there. You just have to search online, and you're going to make your life much easier by doing that.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So again, this is the process that we have for your arrival day, and we do hope that your arrival is a smooth one. But again, if you have any problems, you can always give our on-tour support team a call, and they will be able to offer you advice and assistance. So I do have some tips for your departure day. So as you're getting close to your departure day, I recommend checking in online with your airline 24 hours ahead of your scheduled departure. If you sign up for text and email alerts, they'll remind you to do that, which is helpful. And for seating on your international flights, you can do that directly with your airline. So when you get your flight information from us, you can use that to log onto your airline's website and make seating adjustments there, or you can give them a call. I would also say that when you're going to the airport, please give yourself plenty of extra time and make sure that you double and triple check all your documents. I'm one of those people that arrives hours early, and I think that it's just much better to be far too early and end up feeling silly because you're kicking your heels at your gate than to be trying to run through security and finding your gate. So arrive early, give yourself plenty of extra time. There's no need to be stressed out here. And then if you do have extra time when you're waiting at the gate, do what I do. And then case the airport for the best snacks you can find for that transatlantic flight. All right, so I do want to talk about weather and packing. Linda, can I ask for your help here? June, July, and August, we're getting into the summer months. It can get pretty hot in these locations. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. As I joke, I always say our summer is hot, hot, and hotter. It is really hot. It is true that some of our areas, the areas we're going to visit, have a nice breeze, and it is true that in some cases, especially like on the island, sometimes you have extremely windy days. But you should be prepared for high temperatures. Absolutely.
Great. I think that that's very accurate. And so we do have some packing tips that I would love to share with you. And so the first thing that I would say is pack as lightly as you can. I think it's important whenever you're traveling to try and limit your packing just to make things easier on yourself. But I would say that I would recommend that if you are bringing a checked bag, please bring one checked bag per person. And please try to pack as lightly as you can. As far as carry-on bags, when you are packing your carry-on bags, I would say that there are a few things that I recommend having in there. One of them is medication. So if your check bag is delayed or misplaced, if you have your medication in your carry-on bag, you won't be without that medication. The other thing I think is important to say about medication is that you should plan to bring extra. So if you have an unforeseen delay in your return, like for example, if you do have to enter quarantine, you want to make sure that you have plenty of medication to see you through that period. I also think it's a good idea to bring extra clothes, maybe a toothbrush in your carry-on, just in case your checked baggage is delayed. As far as masks and hand sanitizer, we do recommend that you bring them. I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's important to bring at least a few KN95 masks or FFP2 masks. You may see them referred to but I would definitely bring some of those for certain. Hand sanitizer you will probably see just about everywhere, but it's always good to have your own so you can use it whenever you need it. Now, Linda, walking shoes. These are going to be super important for this trip, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I understand that everybody thinks, okay, walking shoes, it will mean closed shoes like sneakers. It is true that those are very comfortable, but these days we have incredibly comfortable sandals. The most important thing is that you know that you're going to visit some archaeological sites and you'll be walking. And therefore, when you choose your sandals, they have to be comfortable. And most probably the best idea is to use them a couple of times before bringing them on tour.
Yeah, I can say that I've made that mistake in the past and brought new shoes on tour, and avoid making the mistake I did, breaking your shoes before you travel. Now, protection from the sun. Linda, we were talking about this as we were preparing for the meeting, but this is really important to have, because there are some locations on this tour where there's a lot of sun and not a ton of shade.
Exactly. So it really, every day before, when you pack the night before for the day ahead, remember that you have to have, I always call it the 4 items: your mask, your sanitizer, your hat, and your sunscreen. These are the 4 things that you have to have. And I would add a 5th thing, but that will become necessary. You will not forget that, and it's a bottle of water.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Bottles of water, very important. I would say that you can't forget that, but you'll remember when you're on tour and it's warm outside. I do say lightweight clothing is important, and when packing for this trip, I know that it's going to be warm, but I would still try to think of packing in terms of layers and pieces of clothing that you can mix and match with one another. So that if you do have differing temperatures, or you have an evening where it gets cooler, you can think of things you can pair together and make different outfits and combinations. I think it's not a bad idea to bring a lightweight rain jacket or a windbreaker with you. It's not super common that you'll get a lot of rain during these months, but it's possible. And so it's good to be prepared for that. And if you are going on the extension to Santorini, you will be by the sea. And so it can be breezy, and it's just a good idea to have that. Also, if you are going to Santorini, you probably want to pack a bathing suit, especially if you're going on the Caldera cruise. There is an opportunity to swim there. Linda, one thing that I wanted to make sure that we touched on, because we do visit the Vatican, there's an option to visit the Vatican on this tour. Can you talk about how one should dress when visiting religious sites, especially the Vatican?
Absolutely. And this is true not only for the Vatican. For example, when it comes to Rome, if you want to see the best art, you will have to end up entering into churches. Churches in Rome are our local museums. Therefore, you need to remember the rules, the attire, which is no sleeveless and no bare knees. So, which means that you can have a short as far as it covers your knees. Capri pants are fantastic. You don't have to worry about not wearing sandals, because sandals are perfectly acceptable.
Great. Linda, I actually saw some questions coming in here about packing that I would love to ask your opinion of. So one question is, if we're going on the cruise in Santorini, do we need to pack a towel? Can you talk about towels?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you need to have a towel with you to go on the Caldera cruise. And generally speaking, most of the times we are able to use the towels available at the hotel. But there are some cases and circumstances where the hotel does not want people to remove the towels from the swimming pool area or from the room, in which case it is a good idea. What I have learned to do in the last few years, I pack one of those light towels and pareo also, and I use that.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a really lightweight towel to bring, I would say you can look at like sites like REI or other places that are designed for camping and travel, and they have very, very lightweight towels that pack up to almost nothing. So that's one option if you do want to bring your own towel with you. Linda, here's another question. We were talking about making sure that you stay hydrated. This traveler says, will there be easy availability to refill water bottles?
Well, in the city of Rome, definitely. The city of Rome is famous for its water fountains scattered throughout the city, all over. So in the city of Rome, no issues about that. In the rest of the cities that you visit, there are no water fountains available, or not many of them. But it is possible to refill our water bottles. Sometimes we simply ask the hotel in the morning, or we ask the restaurant where we stop for lunch. So that is definitely a possibility. Otherwise, especially in Greece, bottled water is so inexpensive, and it is available everywhere, and it's refrigerated.
Great. I just keep seeing questions that are appropriate for this slide, so I want to keep going through them. One question was asking about evening temperatures. I know that we're talking about 3 months, so it's kind of hard to generalize. Could I ask you to try to generalize about evening temperatures?
Well, if I generalize about the summer, I just say that you're very hot during the day and you're just hot in the evening. So that is my way to go. Of course, if you're traveling in September, you start experiencing a drop in temperature in the evening. So that September is one of those months where you want to layer a little more. You want to really plan ahead in order to layer and be comfortable at all time. But generally speaking, our evenings are very pleasant. On the island, though, you might have a breeze that sometimes is wind, in which case a light jacket, a windbreaker is probably the easiest thing to pack even in your handbag and just be comfortable. Or a shawl for ladies. You're joining one of our optional tours in the evening. If you buy a beautiful scarf, that will keep you more than comfortable.
Great. Wonderful. So I do want to move on to the next piece that we recommend, which is a universal adapter. So when you're traveling in Italy and Greece, they use the socket that you see on the screen here, often called the standard European socket. You may see it referred to as Type C. But I recommend purchasing a universal adapter. So a universal adapter is one adapter that has multiple different plug types. So the reason I say this is that if you go on another trip in the future, you won't have to buy another. You'll have the universal adapter. You can use it no matter where you go. Now, one thing that I want to make sure that I mention here is that these adapters, typically, like the one that you see on the screen here, they will change the shape of your plug, but it won't change the voltage of electricity that's entering your device. So for things like cell phones, tablets, cameras, usually those are designed to operate just fine on 220 volts, which is what you would find in these countries. So for things like cell phones, tablets, those kind of things, usually those are designed to function just fine on European electricity. There are a few things that you should be very careful about. One of them is hair dryers. Hair dryers use a lot of electricity, and they are sort of famous among our staff for either blowing up or not blowing up, but for frying out the hair dryer and sometimes even taking out the electricity in the hotel. So you want to double check your devices to make sure that they will operate on 220 volt electricity. As far as hair dryers go, I would say our hotels nearly always have them. I would encourage you to save some space in your luggage for extra souvenirs and leave your hair dryer at home. But I do think that it is important to check your devices you're going to bring to make sure that they operate on 220 volt electricity. If it's something you absolutely need to have, like a CPAP machine or something of that nature, there are voltage converters that you can purchase that will make it so that you're able to use that device on 220 volt electricity. All right, so let's talk about money on tour. So Linda, I'll tell you my recommendations and I'll see if you have anything else to add. So my first thing is you need to make sure that you tell your bank that you're traveling. That is the first thing you need to do before anything else, is tell your bank that you're traveling. And then I recommend bringing credit cards. So Visa and MasterCard are widely accepted. Bringing those for larger purchases, and then bringing ATM cards to withdraw cash once you arrive for smaller purchases. So some places may have a credit card limit, or if you're just buying a cup of coffee or a sandwich, you want to just use cash. And so that's how I would advise to get euros in cash. I don't recommend bringing cash from home to exchange, because the places to exchange the money are fewer and further between, and you usually get a bad deal compared to what you can get from just withdrawing cash out of ATMs. So those are my top tips. Linda, do you think I've hit on everything? Is there anything else that you think is important to add here?
No, I think you covered it all. It is absolutely, the ATMs are safe to use, especially in these two countries. They're available everywhere. So the ATM is always a good thing. As Nilsson, as you said, yes, warn your bank, and maybe also find out if you have a limit on your card withdrawals. That will not leave you stranded in case you are planning on using only ATMs and you make a large withdrawal and then you're left with no money and then you spend it and then you're left for no money for several hours. So those are things that you can easily check with your bank.
Yeah, so that's a good, thank you for mentioning that, Linda, because we did have a question about if ATMs are safe to use and if we have ones that we recommend. So what I say is when you talk to your bank about the fact that you're traveling, one thing I would ask them is if they have any relationships with other banks overseas, because I have found in the past that sometimes banks do have relationships. You can have lower fees at certain banks. And in general, even aside from that, I would say it's your best bet is to withdraw cash from ATMs that are associated with a real bank. So instead of, you might see these ATMs in a small corner store that are sort of just standalone things. I would say it's a better bet to go and use an ATM that's actually associated with a real bank. All right, so I also want to remind you that that when you are on tour with us, you're going to have folks that are working really hard to give you the best possible experience. You have tour directors, bus drivers, and local guides, and we do recommend that you tip them. For your tour director, well, first of all, I want to say that we do recommend that you tip them in the local currency, if at all possible. And for your tour director, we recommend tipping the equivalent of $7 to $10 US per person per day. For bus drivers, the equivalent of $3 US per person per day, and local guides, the equivalent of $2 US per person per day. I want to give you a few reminders. One of them is that I do recommend that you download our app. We talked a bit at the beginning of the presentation about the Getting Ready tab and the information you can find there. Not only do you have your entry requirements there, but you'll also have information like we've just talked about, things about electricity, about money, about packing. You can find that all in the Getting Ready tab. But we've also made some really great updates to this app, so it's going to enhance your on-tour experience as well. You have a currency converter that you can use, so if you're shopping and you want to know exactly how much that that souvenir costs in dollars, you can use that. But we've also made new ways that you can connect with your group. You can get connected with folks. You can share information about yourself, send messages, and share experiences in the tour feed where you can post photos and memories. So that's a really wonderful way to stay in touch with people while you're touring and after you have finished your tour as well. We really care about how your experience on tour is with us, and we ask you to fill out an evaluation in our app as well. Take it from me, this information is very important to us and it helps us out a great deal. So when you're on tour, you can fill out this information on each day of tour as the tour goes along, and we would really appreciate it if you did that. That way the information is really fresh in your mind, and we can know exactly how tour is going. It's also very helpful for your tour directors. They want to know how well they're doing, and so getting that feedback is very helpful. You'll have up to 5 days after the end of your tour to fill out the evaluation. So please, if you haven't done it on tour, please do it within that time frame. The Go Ahead Tours app is available on Apple and Android, so you can find it in the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store. I want to take a moment here to remind you about our loyalty program. We call it Club Go, and you are already a member. The great thing about Club Go is the more you travel, the more rewards you earn, and you get discounts off of future tours and credit towards future experiences. When you get home from tour, you have access to an additional credit that we call the Welcome Home Credit. And so if you get home and you're feeling the itch to start planning another trip, please give us a call and we'll be happy to help you out. All right, I have a few more reminders before our question and answer period. I want to remind you to continue to check your inbox and the app. For any updates about your tour, we will be contacting you via your email inbox and via the app. I also want to remind you to continue to review your entry requirements. So everything that we've talked about is true as of today, but it's important to know that these things can change. So as you get closer to your tour, you can use the Go Ahead website and the Go Ahead app to review your entry requirements. The last thing I want to say is to get excited for your trip. And I hope you are excited already. I mean, this tour, just going through the itinerary, it sort of speaks for itself, but I have to let you know that in recent months, the feedback we've been getting from our travelers has been really encouraging. We've been getting really great feedback about travel in both of these countries. I think our travelers are very excited to be out and seeing the world again. But I want to let you know that from our perspective here at Go Ahead, we are so excited to have you back on tour, and my colleagues in Italy and Greece are anxious to welcome you. With that, I do want to get into our questions. Let's see what we have here, Linda. So Let's see. Oh, Linda, this is a question that we do get fairly frequently. This one's from Dana, and Dana asks, will there be ways to do laundry?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that, us Europeans, we don't have many laundromats around. Some places do. It is when we find them, it's kind of an unexpected surprise. There is laundry service at the hotel, although when you plan on doing that, you need to consider two things. The first one is that the service might be pricey. And the second thing is that your hotel stay has to be at least 2 nights. Otherwise, they won't be able to deliver your clean laundry on time.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. Yeah, and it is true that the laundry service in hotels, it is there, but it can be rather expensive, and you do need to make sure you have the time for it.
Yeah.
So Linda, here's a question from Mark, and he's asking for recommendations about clothing to wear for the included dinners. And he asks if shorts are okay. Can you talk about the expectation for clothing at included dinners?
Well, in general, our dinners are all casual. Although I always say that if you want to fit in the culture, probably what you want to plan for is a smart casual attire, which does not mean that you have to be elegant, but it's just, having a fresh shirt. And if it is a pair of shorts, maybe a pair of shorts that looks a little dressier, that's perfectly okay. But if you're asking me whether you'll be rejected entrance in one of our restaurants, no, that is not going to happen.
Yes, yeah. In general, our tours are a pretty casual affair. But if you want for dinner, if you want to freshen up and wear something a little bit nicer, that's also very welcome. All right, Linda, here is a question. This one's from Maria, and she asks, how safe is the local water? Often we're advised not to drink local water, when traveling. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, the water is extremely, extremely safe in Rome. It is safe in Sorrento. It is safe also in Athens. When you are by the sea, meaning on the sea, just at the same level, the water is not the best flavor. So, for example, the place where I don't drink the water is definitely Nauflio. I don't like the taste of it. I've never been sick with it, but I just cannot stand the taste. And I avoid drinking water from the tap on the islands.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, is that the water won't make you ill, but in locations that are really close to the ocean, and Santorini especially, because I understand it's desalinated water,
Yeah.
it doesn't taste very good. But Linda, if folks want to drink bottled water, that's available for purchase in all of these places.
Always. Even bus drivers keep it refrigerated in the bus fridge, and they have it on sale on the bus.
Great. So here's a question from Dana. Linda, I'm going to ask you to address this one. It's asking about pickpockets. It says, are pickpockets bad, or is it relatively safe?
I always say plan for bad, because it's
Right.
crowded areas and it's tourism. And after 2 years, I'm sure they had enough time to rest. So I always plan for the worst, actually. But if you're asking me whether that is a major issue that we have, no, I wouldn't describe it as a major issue in any of these places. But if I'm standing in line at the Vatican or at the Colosseum, I make sure that my belongings are under control. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that my way of thinking about this is that I choose to over prepare so that then I'm in the best position. But it's not something that on all the tours I've been on with Go Ahead that has been an issue. But some steps that you can take to make yourself feel more comfortable. One thing I would say is, if you want, you can wear a money belt, which essentially is like a money pouch that fits under your clothing or around your neck. You can purchase anti-theft backpacks and things like that if you wish. But I would say, the thing that I typically do is I wear a money belt just to have that extra security. But all right, let's see what other questions we have here. So this question is, do I have to pay import taxes for my purchases? As I understand it, I'm not certain, so I'd hate to speculate, but as I recall, I think it's only if you spend a really large amount of money, if you're buying a lot of souvenirs, like thousands of dollars worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's you have a custom declaration on the flight, and I think it's if you spend over 800 per family member or something like
Oh,
that. But you can check that with your airline. They have it on the website actually.
oh, great. Yeah, that's very helpful. Um, Julie asked about attire for churches for men. What do guys wear in churches? Long pants or pants
No,
expected for
no, no. In reality, it's always the same story. If your short covers your knees and you're not sleeveless and you take your hat off going into the church, that's the attire.
men? Okay, okay. If you had shorts that didn't reach your knee, those could be a problem.
They are.
Yeah, okay. Um, all right, here's a question. So Patty asks, are backpacks allowed everywhere? Are there any places that you know of where someone might have difficulty bringing a backpack?
The Vatican. The Vatican does not allow backpacks inside the museums, and it's for the sake of its shape because people wear it in the back and they can knock things out. But what happens is that you can use a shoulder bag that day. So, have you seen those lovely fabric bags that now we have in every size and every color, and sometimes they're free at stores? I
Mhm.
always pack 2, 3 of those in different colors. And I make myself fashionable with nothing, basically.
Yeah, that's helpful. Um, all right, so I believe that we have answered all of the questions that we have had submitted thus far. Linda, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about food. Are any foods that people might want to try that you would recommend, especially for first time visitors, people that haven't been to Italy or Greece before?
Okay. Yes, I have my must have. Okay. So you land in the area of Napoli, you have to try the pizza. Neapolitan pizza, go simple, margherita, perfect. And since you're there, a shot of limoncello, why not? And if you're not into alcohol, you can choose for a lemon delice, which is the lovely pastry in Sorrento. In Rome, don't miss out on the carbonara. I think you
Mm.
should try the carbonara. I'm a big carbonara fan. But also, if you're you like sweets, maritozzo, which is our pastry with whipped cream, that's fantastic. In Athens, Nafplio, spanakopita, spinach
Mm.
pie. And there is, it's just to die for. I love it. In it also Saganaki fried cheese. You have to try the fried cheese in Greece. And if you come to the Santorini extension, you have to try the local salad with the local capers and the local tomatoes. You're not going to regret your choice.
Oh my goodness, it just sounds so delightful. Linda, I did have a few more questions come in that I want to put to you, although I wish I could talk food all day. So one question is about backpacks in the Vatican. It says, if you have a backpack and you're going to the Vatican, is there a place to store it and retrieve it after?
I do normally recommend my travelers to leave it on the bus and retrieve it at the end of the tour. Because if you leave it at the cloakroom of the Vatican, you might not go back the same way, which means that you're putting yourself through an awfully long walk in order to retrieve your backpack.
Yes, yeah, I think that that's a good piece of advice because you know you're going to be going back to the bus, and really that's only extending, your time that you'd have to walk or more walking time if you leave it in the cloakroom at the Vatican. Here's a good question, and I'm happy to take this one. It says, any chance that travel restrictions will change regarding boosters? The short answer to that is yes. There is absolutely a chance that regulations may change. I can tell you that being in this job over the last number of months, we've seen regulations change a lot. So that's why I think it's important to acknowledge that what we discussed today is true as of today, but that does not necessarily mean that these regulations will be in place at the time that you travel. So it is important to continue to stay up to date on entry requirements because it is possible that these things could change. We don't have any official announcements to share or anything of that nature, but yes, it is possible that regulations could change between now and your tour. So it's important to check up on those entry requirements using the Go Ahead app and the Go Ahead website. So with that, I do want to thank all of you for coming today. I also want to thank you so much for traveling with us and for choosing this incredible itinerary. You're really in for a wonderful experience. Linda, do you have any final thoughts for our travelers as they get ready for their tours this summer?
Well, yeah, I actually thank you very much for participating in this talk. It was a pleasure being here tonight, and I'm going to see you on the roads of Italy and Greece.
Wonderful. Thank you again for joining us today. For now, we will say happy travels, and we can't wait to see you on tour. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.